Sometimes, to keep things interesting, comic book writers will change up the status quo and make a good guy go bad. We're all used to it by this point, but it's still cool when it happens. I'm Adam Andrews, and this is Top 10 Nerds Top 10 List of Superhero Downfalls We Can't Believe Happened, Part 2. Coming in at number 10 is Johnny Bates. Some of you may be aware of Marvel Man. Some of you may not. Essentially, he is an old superhero who was roughly the British equivalent of Captain Marvel, aka Shazam from the DC Universe. Michael Morin had the ability to transform into a superpowered hero by saying the word Marvel Man. For a while, some legal issues made it Miracle Man, but you get the point. Like Billy Batson, Moran also had a sidekick, Johnny Bates, who by saying his magic word transformed into Kid Marvel Man. These two and their whole super family, including Marvel Woman, were sidelined for almost 20 years after a big long comic book run, with the heroes resurfacing in 1982 under Alan Moore. As part of that revival, Marvel Man and Kid Marvel Man were part of a secret government program and were attacked with a nuke. Now, they both survived, but Marvel Man now had no memory of his superhero alter ego. Kid Marvel Man, on the other hand, believed he was the only survivor and decided never to return to his child form ever again, growing into a superpowered adult. This allowed him to grow his powers enormously, but his disillusionment at being alone in the world and the power he now had turned him into a complete psychopath. Kid Marvel Man went on a rampage, attacking and destroying almost the whole of London, England, and wiping out most of the population, and he never got to redeem himself because he was defeated and completely wiped out by his former mentor for being too dangerous to be kept alive. Number 9. Omni Man. Now, this isn't incredibly unbelievable anymore, as it is a huge plot point in the story of Invincible. But I watched the show before I read the comics, and when Omni-Man turned around and brutally decimated the whole of the Guardians of the Globe, I honestly sat there with my mouth open just staring at my TV. It's possibly one of the biggest reasons that I quickly ran and read the entire series. You see, Omni-Man is at first presented as the closest thing to Superman in the Invincible universe. He's set up as the world's strongest hero, hailing from an empire of human-like aliens called Viltrumites, who seek to be peacekeepers throughout the universe. And then, all of a sudden, the Viltrumites are revealed to actually be the biggest threat to the universe, being brutal and desperate conquerors, with Omni-Man sent to Earth to judge the planet's viability as the new Viltrumite breeding ground, and then take it over for the entire empire. Unlike other Superman but bad characters, one of the central conflicts behind this story is the father-son relationship between Omni-Man and his son Mark, or Invincible. And the whole thing was just an awesome twist that you don't expect until it happens, and then it hooks you in so you want to see what happens next. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you go ahead and drop a like, and make sure to check out part 1 where we covered 10 more heroes who fell to the dark side. Thanks. In at number 8 though is Injustice Superman. Some of the best Superman stories have to deal with the Man of Steel, or should I say an alternate version of him, going to the dark side or just being straight up evil. Ultraman, Superboy Prime, Superman Red Sun, all fantastic takes on the character, but, and this is an arguable point, the darkest and most shocking of these is Injustice. Sure, Injustice is based off the Mortal Kombat-like video game, but its story, built upon its own line of comics, isn't just dark from the get-go, but it's actually pretty great. Thanks to the Joker, Superman is tricked into taking the life of Lois Lane, destroying Metropolis, and taking out his own son. He then decides to plunge his hand straight through the Joker's chest, pretty understandably, just cementing the fact that he has gone bad forever. But if that weren't enough, it's the way he dispatches the other heroes who used to be his friends that will really get you. Burning Martian Manhunter and using his heat vision on Shazam's eyeballs are two of the worst ones for me. Number 7. Thor. After the passing of Odin at the hands of Surtur during Dan Jurgens' 1998 to 2004 run on Thor, Thor ends up becoming King of Asgard, and well, Thor ends up being a pretty bad king. He is harsh, he lacks patience, and he makes some really questionable choices with the Odin Force power that he now wields. Choices like going off fighting frost giants, getting together with Amora the Enchantress of all people, and, in a really odd move, Thor decides that Asgard should invade Earth. Thor uses the resources at Asgard's command to try and forcibly solve all of Midgard's problems. Instead of trying to lead humans to be better, he just solves our problems for us, and while there is a lot of good done by this, sure, a lot of people are resistant to it. A coalition of different countries staged an attack against Asgard, destroying both it and New York City, pushing Thor even further into becoming a sort of dictator. He failed the Koron Kata, which is the test of character put in place by the Council of Godheads, and if that weren't enough, Thor eventually becomes unworthy of Mjolnir when he takes the life of Jake Olsen. He gains religious followers, makes enemies of his friends, and fights and imprisons other Avengers. But he does indeed become the ruler of Earth over the next 200 years, only to reverse it all when he realized how he was still a failure in the eyes of his son. Number 6. Black Mary. Black Mary has long been considered one of DC Comics' most wholesome characters, being one of the best members of the DC Shazam family. But after losing her powers in the trials of Shazam, Mary later encountered Black Adam. Now at this point in time, Black Adam was dealing with his wife's passing, and after realizing Mary was now powerless, Black Adam decided to imbue her with a portion of his power, transforming her into a dark, angry version of her former self. Going by the name Black Mary, Mary eventually became addicted to dark magic and ended up entangling in the schemes of Darkseid and his evil minion Desaad. Black Adam took Shazam's best family member and the most wholesome person around and corrupted her. I ain't even mad at her for letting it happen. Black Adam is a jerk. Number 5. Scarlet Witch. After Wanda Maximoff had gained a powerful new chaos magic from Chthon, she was a little bit more unstable than usual, and after the children she had lost and forgotten about, an unintentional remark by a fellow Avenger, the Wasp, mentioning her kids drove her over the edge. Again. And her chaos magic was unleashed and she went bananas on the Avengers, really giving it to them. This directly led to the de-lifing of the now Wanda-crazed Vision by She-Hulk, an illusion of a Kree invasion, a fake team of Avengers to protect Wanda, and not to mention the end of the line for both Hawkeye and Ant-Man. This caused the Avengers and X-Men to come together to think of ways to deal with her. Some, including Xavier, even suggested they put her somewhere she can do no harm. Somewhere like the Afterlife, for example. As you can imagine, it didn't sit very well with Wanda when her brother Quicksilver told her about this and urged her to take action against it. Wanda then used her reality warping chaos magic powers to rewrite the entire of reality to the House of M. Number 4. Ikaris. This one came as a bit of a surprise for me personally. I read the Eternals comics as a kid, and Ikaris was the greatest of them. He was cool, if not like a little basic, but he wasn't a traitor, so it was almost a pleasant surprise to see the MCU go a totally different route of making him betray his fellow Eternals. I think it made the story just way more interesting. Basically, Ikaris learned of his true purpose, to protect the human race to prepare for the birth of the Celestial growing inside of the Earth. His fellow Eternals, including their leader Ajak, however, had grown attached to humanity, and so Ikaris made the decision to betray them, causing Ajak's passing and trying to bring the birth of Tiamat the Celestial. It was an interesting change that some people may have liked and others may have hated, but it happened all the same, and in my opinion, it was pretty cool. Number 3. Angel. Warren Worthington III was one of the original 5 X-Men, going by the superhero name Angel because of his huge and amazing wings that allowed him to fly. But when he moved to the X-Force team, things went a little downhill. Thanks to a crossover event called the Mutant Massacre, Warren's wings were mutilated by the mutant Harpoon. Each wing was impaled, causing them to become infected and eventually even amputated. Warren was absolutely devastated by this, and at his weakest moment, the incredibly powerful villain Apocalypse showed up to save the day, quote unquote. Apocalypse offered to restore Warren's wings on the condition that Angel would serve as his horseman death. Warren, being completely lost, agreed, and he became Archangel and the lead horseman. Knowing all their tactics and all their weaknesses, Archangel beat all of the X-Men in battle way too easily. Eventually, Iceman helped him to recover his heroic side again, but this change endured, and the Archangel persona has been a huge part of Warren's character ever since, with him battling with his darker persona and eventually learning how to control and harness it. Number 2. Bishop. Bishop's portrayal of the X-Men during 2007's Messiah Complex revealed how far the time-displaced mutant is willing to go to change the future for the better. Basically, Bishop comes from a dark future where mutants and humanity had eventually gone to war, and he eventually ended up trapped in the present. He became an X-Men, and he's served on a number of teams off and on over the years, even being Professor X's personal bodyguard, and was just incredibly popular. After Decimation depowered almost all mutants on Earth, the birth of Hope Summers signaled hope for the mutants, as she was the first mutant born since the Decimation, and she was an incredibly powerful one too. But Bishop's past came back to haunt him, convincing him that Hope was the cause of the dark future that he came from. He betrayed the X-Men and planned to take out Hope before she could grow up and change the world forever. He set off Nano Sentinels with the One Sentinel Squad, taking down the human pilots and pitting the Sentinels against the X-Men. He then ambushed Forge in the chaos, laying a trap to capture Cable, who was protecting Hope, and end Hope's life. By the end of the event, Bishop had to flee the X-Men after firing on Hope, and instead accidentally striking and nearly taking down Charles Xavier himself. And finally, in at number 1, it's Daredevil. The ninja clan known as the Hand has had many run-ins with different heroes over the years, but none of those heroes have had as much interaction with the shadowy group as Daredevil. His mentor, Stick, and his sometimes girlfriend, Elektra, have history with the clan as well, and he's never been particularly fond of them, because why would he be? But when he seemed to secure control over the clan itself, he decided to put their skills to good use. He moved them to Hell's Kitchen and set up a headquarters and prison known as Shadowland. He changed the Hand into what he thought was a force for good, but as his time with the Hand went on, he seemed to be the one who was changing for the worse, becoming more aggressive and drastic with his methods of crime fighting. He started to butt heads with other heroes and even became responsible for the passing of his adversary, Bullseye. Now it turns out that this brutal new Daredevil was actually being possessed by an ancient demon called the Beast, who is the source of the Hand's mystical powers. Daredevil was secretly manipulated by the Snake Root, which is the small faction of the Hand that worshipped the Beast, that manipulated Daredevil into undergoing the ritual of the Black Flower. So when Daredevil took Bullseye's life, it actually completed the ritual and the Beast possessed him fully and corrupted the people of Hell's Kitchen until Iron Fist exorcised the demon from Matt Murdock. And that's all I got. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Adam Andrews, this is Top 10 Nerd. I will catch you all on the flippy flop, but until then, stay safe and peace out, nerds!